Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and I'm going to be talking about D&D Next today, the Dungeons & Dragons Next Player's Handbook, most important book that's being printed today. What I want to talk today about is what the Wizards of Coast team has done right so far in the building of this book. So this was so fascinating. This book's been being built for about a year and a half now, year and a half, and it's probably going to be a year and a half, 2.5 to up to 3 years before the book actually comes out. So it's a long time for this company to not have the ability to put a current version of the product of Dungeons and Dragons of Dungeons and Dragons on the shelves. So what I want to talk about is what they've done right so far, in my opinion, on how they're building this. So right out of the gate, I see two things that they've done very, very well. And the first one is, I actually think the playtest is a good idea. Based on what happened previously, that was a problem with 4th edition, so it's good. Your Talon fans were listening to you, and so right out of the gate, that may assuage some of the bad will that the game got under 4th edition. So, but the next one is disadvantage and advantage. So this is a brilliant new mechanic from the new Dungeons and Dragons Next product. And basically, in the old days, when you made a skill check, or when you made an attack, you would roll a d20, a 20-sided die, and you would try to hit a difficulty check number, which was a base number set by the dungeon master, and then he would apply, or she would apply, modifiers to that, right? So now, with advantage and disadvantage, it's the same thing, only when your character has advantage. So let's say you're shooting at an orc, and he is silhouetted, right? So it's easier for you to shoot at him. You would get advantage. So what you could do is you roll 2d20, two 20-sided dice, and you take the higher of those two, right? This is brilliant because it is a very clear advantage. As far as the numbers, the math and the probability is higher that you're going to be able to hit that orc, considerably higher, right? And there's a lot of really good videos and blogs just about the actual statistics on that are worth looking at. And so, but this is really brilliant because one of the coolest things about Dungeons & Dragons is when you pick up the dice, because you don't know what's going to happen. It's exciting, right? And it's also it's one of the things that crushes video games. It's one of the reasons I love the reason why I love the Dungeons & Dragons game is because basically I'm a computer guy, so I started using computers when I was 13, and I went right down the road of most young men of playing video games, right? And video games are really fantastic at first, but then they taper off. So my take on video games is that they are amazing, they're wonderful, they're fantastic entertainment, but they have a terrible ROI. They have a terrible return on investment, and the investment is your time, right? So the ROI on Dungeons & Dragons is so much higher than the ROI on any video game in the world that they're barely comparable, right? So the return on investment for Dungeons & Dragons is, if you start playing Dungeons & Dragons, you're going to need to gather your 4 or 5 of your friends around a table, and you're going to have to play a game with them, right? At the table. You will play a game with them at the table. And these are your physical friends, right? If you're the dungeon master, you're gonna have to read the player's handbook, the monster manual, and the dungeon master guide, 250 to 300 pages a piece, minimum of 750 pages, really about 900 pages minimum. That's where you start. That is a lot of reading. That is going to increase your vocabulary. It's going to increase your math. Once you start doing it, you're going to need to build worlds. You're going to need to build ecologies for monsters. You're going to know about politics. You're going to know about language. You're going to know about alignment, morality. Like Dungeons & Dragons gets into morality, all these things. And you make the decision. You have to, with your words and with your excitement, you have to gather together all your friends and build something that is exciting for all of them. Now, basically, the video game, you gather together with people who are not in your physical space, which means that your ability to affect their lives, to just be there for them when they're low, or celebrate with them, or just is curtailed, incredibly curtailed, right? Just shake their hand, give them a hug, whatever, you can't do those things, and And then the other issue is, especially World of Warcraft, I saw a lot of guys really gotten taken out, just eviscerated by World of Warcraft. Brilliant, brilliant guys who gave just hundreds or even thousands of hours to that game, for 60 and 80th level characters. And what do they have at the end of it, right? One, it distanced them from their friends. It distanced them from their family. It did not increase their vocabulary, that's for sure. It did not increase their reading skills, which reading skills go directly into being a good leader, being a better employee. Reading increases almost every single aspect of your life. And so just that part, is so there's social aspects of D&D and the reading aspect, the academic aspect of Dungeons and Dragons is so far ahead. It accelerates the return on investment so far ahead of any video game in the world that it's incredible. But one of the best things about it is this tactile thing, which you don't get in a video game, right? You get to pick up these little polyhedral dice, and I know the word polyhedral because I am a tabletop role-playing game player, and and then you get to know all these different shapes, these wild shapes, and you learn about geometry, and so you get to roll that 20-sided die, which is really exciting. It's the most exciting, and you don't know what's going to happen, And it can be a cracked die, and then there's also the issue of cheating. Like people can cheat, and dungeon masters can fudge rolls, or players can fudge rolls, and then you have to deal with, how do you deal with a cheating player? How do you deal with a cheating dungeon master? And so, young men, and players gather together and they deal with these issues, these real world issues. And it's real. It's just, there's something you're picking up. It's tactile, and it's there, and it's in your home, and it's in somebody else's home, and that's an important thing. I think just dealing with human beings is we are human beings, and I'm a technology professional. I love technology, but you got to know the limits. And Dungeons and Dragons is one of the best ways to pull things back and say we're humans. The written word is valuable. Social, interaction is valuable, and so these are really important things. So disadvantage is doubles the amount of die rolling, which is just it's doubly good. It's awesome, right? So the other thing I think that the Wizards of the Coast team is just doing tremendously well is multiple edition support, right? And so they've already done this, right? So just the creating of Dungeons and Dragons Next has already given us tremendous multi-edition support, right? So building Dungeons and Dragons Next, they are in this very strange period, and again, companies should be watching Wizards of the Coast like the hawk. What do you do when you're building your next product and you need to keep money flowing in the door? And so the way Wizards of the Coast did this was they actually have been reprinting all of their old books, right? And so and you can get every single version of the Dungeons and Dragons editions in wonderful, beautiful 8.5 by 11. I think the sizes are a little larger than that, but hardback books reprinted, available right now for a normal retail price. And before this, very good copies of the Player's Handbook, first edition Player's Handbook, were very expensive. And so this is great to just see these on local gaming stores again. First edition, second edition, third edition, fourth edition, you can get them all printed right now, and that is wonderful, right? And it tells people, hey, you can play any game, any version that you want. You can play the way they played in the 70s, the way they played in the 80s, the way they played in the 90s, the way they played in the 2000s. That's pretty incredible. So this desire to make D&D Next applicable and supportive of all the editions is, again, also unprecedented. No tabletop role-playing game company in the world has ever done this. So the Dungeons & Dragons Next Player's Handbook is groundbreaking, and it's a meta topic. It's a linchpin for publishing, technology, for social interaction, for bringing men back to academic pursuits. It's just a really important book. So thank you.